Hey everyone, welcome back. You know, um, we're gonna try something a little different today. We're gonna loosen up the format a bit and just dive into a topic that's got everyone talking. Nepo babies.
Yeah, definitely hot topic.
So before we get too deep,
Yeah.
let's break it down for anyone who might not be totally familiar with the term. Nepo babies are basically children of celebrities. And they often seem to have a little bit of an easier path to success in Hollywood thanks to their family's fame and connections.
Right. It's like, oh, they're born on third base.
Uh-huh. Love that analogy.
Well, everyone else is still looking for a bat.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and 2024 has been a banner year for these rising Nepo babies.
Yeah.
Making headlines. You've got Gracie Abrams,
Oh, yeah.
daughter of J.J. Abrams, touring with Taylor Swift, snagging gigs on SNL. Then there's Maude Apatow, daughter of Judd Apatow and Leslie Mann, launching her own production company. It's like Hollywood's turning into a family business.
Well, and it's interesting because the term itself might feel new. But the concept of nepotism, this has been around forever. It's just that with social media, platforms like TikTok especially, the conversation have blown up.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And it's become a way for people to kind of call out what they see as an unfair advantage in a system that's already super tough to break into.
For sure. And it really does raise some big questions about fairness. And, whether true talent is being recognized. Is it all about who you know? Or can these Nepo babies genuinely be talented in their own right? I think that's kind of what I'm hoping we can unpack today.
Absolutely. That's really the core of the debate, isn't it? And it really muddies the waters when we try to judge talent, especially in an industry like entertainment, which is so subjective. Like if you take music, for example, when someone like Gracie Abrams hits the charts, it's natural to wonder, is that because she's actually talented? Or did her connections play a role?
Yeah, it really makes you question how much of their success is earned versus inherited, and how do we even begin to separate those two?
Yeah, it's really tricky to measure. You can't quantify talent the way you can quantify album sales or, social media followers or whatever. And this is where the idea of meritocracy comes into play. This belief that success should be based on talent and effort, not connections. And nepotism kind of throws a wrench in that whole concept.
Right. It's like the system is rigged from the start. And I can only imagine how frustrating it must be for talented individuals who are out there, struggling to break in, facing rejection after rejection, while someone with a famous last name is sailing through those same doors.
Absolutely. There is this real concern that the prominence of Nepo babies in these high-profile roles could be limiting opportunities for equally or even more talented individuals who just don't have those family ties. And it raises questions about whether the playing field is really level and if true talent is actually getting a fair shot.
And it's not just about who gets the roles. It's also about how audiences perceive talent. When we see a Nepo baby succeed, do we automatically attribute it to their family connections? Does that create a bias that works against them? Or does it give them an unfair advantage in the eyes of casting directors and producers? It's a really complex issue.
It is, yeah, and it's important to remember, we're not saying all Nepo babies are untalented or undeserving. There are plenty who are incredibly gifted and work incredibly hard. But the existence of nepotism does create this kind of shadow of doubt. It makes it harder to assess their success objectively.
Right, it's like this constant asterisk next to their name. But let's flip the script for a second and look at it. From the perspective of the Nepo babies themselves, what are some of the unique advantages and challenges they face navigating this world?
We'll imagine growing up surrounded by the world of entertainment. From a young age, Nepo babies are exposed to the inner workings of the industry. They might attend movie sets, go to award shows, rub shoulders with industry giants. That kind of early exposure is like a masterclass in filmmaking before you even graduate high school.
Wow, yeah, it's like getting a backstage pass to this exclusive club while everyone else is waiting in line just hoping to get a glimpse. And I bet it goes beyond just observing. They probably have access to top-notch training and resources that most aspiring actors or musicians wouldn't even dream of.
Oh, you're absolutely right. We're talking about connections to influential agents and producers, the best acting coaches, even just having someone with experience to kind of guide them through this often cutthroat world of Hollywood. These are advantages that can be invaluable in an industry that's built on relationships and who you know.
But I bet it's not all red carpets and champagne, right? There has to be a downside to being a Nepo baby. This constant pressure to prove yourself and overcome the whispers that you only got there because of your last name.
Absolutely. Imagine the pressure of living up to a famous parent's legacy. Every performance is scrutinized. Every misstep is magnified. Critics are often quick to attribute their success to family connections rather than talent. It's a constant battle against preconceived notions. And this need to prove that you're more than just a famous last name.
Yeah, it's like they're starting the race a few steps ahead, but they're also carrying a heavier weight on their shoulders. It's got to be tough to shake off those stereotypes and establish your own identity in an industry that thrives on labels.
Exactly. And it can be a double-edged sword. The family name might open doors, but it also invites a level of scrutiny that can be incredibly daunting.
Right. It's like living under a microscope, with everyone analyzing your every move waiting for you to stumble.
Yeah.
But then you have someone like Jamie Lee Curtis, who's often dubbed the OG Nepo baby. But she's built an incredibly successful career spanning decades and just won an Oscar 44 years after her debut. She's like a masterclass in navigating those choppy waters.
Yeah, she's a fantastic example of someone who has faced those challenges head on and emerged as this respected talent in her own right. And she's been incredibly candid about the realities of being a Nepo baby, acknowledging the benefits and the hurdles, while also emphasizing the importance of hard work and dedication.
Right. It's like she's saying, yeah, I might have had a head start, but I didn't just coast on my family name. I put in the work. I honed my craft, and I earned my place. And that's an important distinction to make.
It is, and it highlights the fact that nepotism isn't a guarantee of success. It might give you a foot in the door. But ultimately, talent, hard work, and the ability to connect with audiences, those are what determine longevity in the entertainment world. And those are qualities that are found in individuals from all backgrounds, not just those with famous parents.
What makes you wonder, though, right? Like, are there some Nepo babies out there that are totally killing it, but we just assume they got there because of mom and dad?
Well, that's a great point. It's like we jump to conclusions sometimes without really considering, the individual's talent and effort. Like take Maya Hawke, for example.
Oh, yeah, she's great.
She's the daughter of Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke, and she's been making waves with her role in Stranger Things, but she's also a talented musician.
It's funny you say that. I honestly didn't even realize she was a Nepo baby until recently. Maybe it's because she seems to be choosing roles that really resonate with her, rather than, just chasing the spotlight or relying on her parents' fame to get ahead.
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation. It's like she's deliberately trying to carve out her own path, separate from her parents' legacy. And she's been pretty open about the whole nepotism conversation, too, acknowledging the privilege while also emphasizing her commitment to her craft.
Yeah, it's refreshing to see that kind of self-awareness, right? It's like she's saying, yeah, I got a boost, but I'm not taking it for granted. I'm here to work.
Yeah.
And her performance in Stranger Things speaks for itself. She's a talented actress, plain and simple.
Absolutely, and she's not the only one. You look at Allison Williams, known for her roles in Girls and Get Out. Her father is Brian Williams, the famous news anchor.
Oh, right.
So she definitely fits the Nepo baby definition. But she's also a Yale grad and has consistently chosen roles that challenge her and showcase her range.
I've always been impressed by her dedication. To her craft, she doesn't seem to be chasing fame for fame's sake. It's like she's carefully curating her career, making these deliberate choices that push her boundaries as an actress.
And she's spoken about the realities of starting out with connections, too, acknowledging that it's very different from starting from scratch. And it just shows a level of honesty and self-reflection that's often missing from the whole nepotism conversation.
Yeah, it's like she's acknowledging the inherent unfairness of the system, while also striving to excel within it. And honestly, I think she's doing a phenomenal job.
I agree. And I think these examples, from Maya Hawke to Allison Williams, they really demonstrate the diverse ways that Nepo babies navigate this complex landscape. Some might try to distance themselves from their family legacy, while others might embrace it. But ultimately, their success relies on their talent, their hard work, and the choices they make.
Right. It's not just about who your parents are. It's about what you do with the opportunities you're given. It's about honing your craft, pushing yourself, and ultimately connecting with audiences on a genuine level. And that's true whether you're a Nepo baby or not.
Exactly. And speaking of those who've made it without a famous last name, there are tons of non-Nepo celebrities who have reached the top through sheer talent and determination, like Brad Pitt.
Oh, yeah. Classic example.
He had no connections to the industry, but rose to become one of the biggest names in Hollywood through hard work and undeniable talent.
Yeah, he really embodies that classic Hollywood success story, starting with nothing and working his way up to the top. And his career is a testament to the fact that you don't need a famous last name to make it in this industry.
Absolutely, and it's not just him. Look at Miley Cyrus. Now, she comes from a famous family. Her dad's Billy Ray Cyrus. But she's carved out her own unique path, breaking free from expectations and constantly reinventing herself.
Totally. She's definitely not afraid to push boundaries
Hmm.
and challenge the status quo.
Hmm.
And it's that kind of fearless attitude and willingness to take risks
Right.
that have made her such a captivating artist.
And she's been incredibly successful at it,
Okay.
consistently topping the charts, captivating audiences worldwide. And her journey shows that you can leverage family connections to get your foot in the door, but ultimately it's your talent drive and ability to connect with audiences that determine your longevity.
Yeah, it's like she took the blueprint that was handed down to her
Yeah.
and then ripped it to shreds, created something totally new and authentic. And then you have someone like Billie Eilish, who's become a global phenomenon with her unique sound and style. Her parents were voice actors and screenwriters, so there's some debate about whether she even qualifies as a true Nepo baby.
Yeah, it's a bit of a gray area, isn't it? Her parents' work wasn't exactly mainstream Hollywood, but having parents in the entertainment industry, regardless of their level of fame, can provide valuable insights and connections that most people just don't have access to.
Right, it's like they understand the language of the industry, the unspoken rules, the ways to navigate the system. But I think what truly sets Billie Eilish apart is her artistic vision. She's created a sound and an image that's undeniably her own, and she's done it with this sense of confidence and authenticity. That's hard to deny.
Oh, for sure. She's definitely tapped into something special, capturing the hearts of millions with her music and her message. And it's a testament to the fact that talent, originality,
Hmm?
and a strong sense of self can propel you to success, regardless of your background.
Totally. It's like she took those initial advantages and then
Okay.
multiplied them with raw talent creativity
Yeah.
and a willingness to break the mold.
Exactly. And I think that's an important takeaway from all these examples. Nepotism might play a role in some success stories, but it's not the sole determining factor. Talent, hard work, and a bit of luck are still essential ingredients.
And let's not forget, we've been focusing a lot on the entertainment industry. But nepotism isn't confined to Hollywood. It exists in all sorts of fields, from politics to business, even sports.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. The impact of nepotism can vary depending on the industry. In some fields, it might be more about maintaining family traditions or passing down a business from one generation to the next.
Yeah, like in family-owned restaurants or small businesses, where the craft is passed down through generations. But in other industries like politics or big corporations, nepotism can have a much wider impact, potentially affecting entire systems and policies.
Exactly. And that's where things can get really tricky. We've talked about how nepotism can affect perceptions of talent
Mm.
and create an uneven playing field. But what about its impact on the institutions themselves? How does nepotism affect the way these systems function?
That's a great question. It's like, does nepotism ultimately weaken these systems? Or does it somehow contribute to their stability? For example, in politics, you have these political dynasties, where power seems to be passed down through families. Does that create a system that's more resilient? Or one that's more prone to corruption and stagnation?
Hmm. That's a complex issue with valid arguments on both sides. Some argue that political dynasties can provide stability and continuity, especially in countries with fragile democracies. They point to the experience and knowledge that's passed down through generations, arguing that it can actually be beneficial for governance.
Yeah, it's like having a built-in mentorship program, right? You learn the ropes from those who came before you,
Yeah.
inheriting a wealth of knowledge and connections.
Exactly. But on the flip side, critics argue that political dynasties can stifle competition, limit fresh perspectives, and create a sense of entitlement among those in power.
It's like they're born into a role rather than earning it, which can lead to complacency and a lack of accountability. And in a system that's supposed to be based on representing the people, that can be a big problem.
It is, and this issue of accountability is a recurring theme. When we talk about nepotism, when people are appointed to positions based on family ties rather than merit, it can erode trust in the system and create a breeding ground for corruption.
Right? It's like the system becomes less about serving the people and more about serving a select few, those with the right last names and connections. And that can have a ripple effect, creating a culture of favoritism and undermining the principles of fairness and meritocracy that these systems are supposed to be built on.
Exactly, and these concerns aren't limited to politics. We see similar issues play out in the business world, especially in large corporations where nepotism can run rampant.
Yeah, it's like the age-old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And in the corporate world, that can translate to unqualified family members landing cushy jobs, getting preferential treatment, and even climbing the corporate ladder at an accelerated pace, regardless of their actual skills or contributions.
And this can have a really demoralizing effect on employees who are working hard and proving themselves, only to see someone less qualified get ahead, simply because of their family connections. It can create this sense of resentment and unfairness that can permeate the entire company culture.
Right. It's like this unspoken message that
Hmm.
loyalty to the family trumps everything else, even hard work and talent. And that can be incredibly damaging to employee morale and productivity.
It can, and it can also lead to poor decision making. When you have people in leadership positions who are more concerned with pleasing their relatives than making sound business decisions, it can have a really negative impact on the company's overall performance.
Yeah, it's like the company becomes less about achieving its goals and more about maintaining the family's power and influence. And that can be a recipe for disaster in a competitive market.
It is, and it's not just about the bottom line. Nepotism can also create this culture of secrecy and distrust, making it harder for employees to speak up about problems or raise concerns.
It's like this fear of rocking the boat, right? You don't want to challenge the established power structure, even if you see something that's wrong. And that can create a toxic work environment where people are more focused on self-preservation than doing what's best for the company.
Exactly. And this can stifle innovation and creativity as employees become less willing to take risks or propose new ideas for fear of reprisal.
So what we're seeing here is that nepotism, regardless of the industry, can have these far-reaching consequences. It can affect not only individuals' careers and opportunities, but also the health and integrity of entire systems and organizations.
It can, and it's a complex issue with no easy solutions. But recognizing the problem and understanding its potential impact is the first step towards addressing it.
Right. It's about having those difficult conversations, shining a light on the dark corners and challenging the status quo. It's about demanding transparency, accountability, and a commitment to fairness and meritocracy.
And it's about recognizing that nepotism doesn't just affect a select few, it affects us all. It shapes our perceptions of success. It influences our opportunities and ultimately impacts the kind of world we live in.
Wow, this conversation has really opened my eyes to the complexities of nepotism. We've gone way beyond those initial headlines about Nepo babies in Hollywood and uncovered a much deeper issue that touches almost every aspect of our lives. It's complex, it's messy, but it's a conversation we need to be having.
It has, and while it can feel overwhelming at times, it's important to remember that we can all play a role in challenging nepotism and promoting a more equitable world.
That's a great point. It's not just about complaining or pointing fingers. It's about taking action. It's about being conscious consumers, supporting businesses that prioritize fairness, and advocating for policies that level the playing field.
And it's about having those tough conversations with our friends, family, colleagues, raising awareness and challenging outdated beliefs. It's about creating a culture where talent and hard work are valued above all else.
Yeah, it's like planting seeds of change, right? Even small actions can have a ripple effect, and collectively we can make a difference.
We can, and I think that's a message of hope we can all hold on to as we continue to navigate this complex and ever-evolving world.
You know, it's easy to get kind of overwhelmed talking about these big systemic issues
Yeah.
like nepotism, but I'm a big believer in action, not
Yeah.
just talk. So let's get practical for a sec. What can companies actually do to create a more level playing field, especially in the corporate world where it can really create a toxic environment?
Yeah, for sure. It's not a problem that just fixes itself, but there are definitely concrete steps companies can take to create a more equitable workplace. First and foremost, they need to establish clear, transparent policies around hiring and promotions. And I'm talking about really shaking things up. Think blind recruitment, where resumes are stripped of any personal details. That could hint at family connections.
Oh, wow. So like taking the name out of the game completely.
Exactly.
You're judged solely on your skills and experience, not on who your parents are.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful concept.
It is, and it forces those in charge of hiring to focus on what truly matters, the candidate's qualifications. But it doesn't stop there. Companies need to implement structured interviews, standardized assessments, basically anything that takes the subjectivity out of the evaluation process and minimizes the potential for bias.
So it's like creating a system with checks and balances,
Yeah.
making sure that everyone has a fair shot. But even with the best policies in place, it all comes down to the people at the top right. If the leadership is playing favorites, no amount of rules is going to fix that.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Leadership needs to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. They need to embody those principles of fairness and actively promote diversity and inclusion at all levels. It's about setting the tone for the entire organization, showing that they value merit above all else.
Yeah, it's like sending that clear message. We're not about who you know, we're about what you can do. But let's be real for a second. Nepotism is so deeply ingrained in some cultures. It's seen as a way to protect your own, to ensure the family's success. How do we even begin to shift those deeply held beliefs? That favor family ties over everything else.
It's a long game for sure, but I think education is key. Openly discussing the downsides of nepotism, highlighting the value of diverse perspectives, showcasing companies that have thrived by embracing meritocracy. These can all help to change minds over time.
It's like chipping away at those old ways of thinking, showing that there's a better, more equitable path forward.
But what about us regular folks, those of us who aren't CEOs or policymakers? What can we actually do in our own lives to combat nepotism?
Well, you hit on something really important earlier. We vote with our wallets, don't we? Supporting businesses that are known for their fair practices, choosing entertainment created by those who earn their spot, calling out nepotism when we see it. Those actions might seem small, but they send a message. I love that. It's about being conscious consumers and citizens, using our choices to create that ripple effect. And hey, maybe next time we're talking about a movie or an album, we take a moment to think about how the creators got there. Was it pure talent, or did a famous last name smooth the way?
Exactly. Awareness is the first step. The more we understand the nuances of nepotism, the better equipped we'll be to challenge it
Mhm.
and champion true talent wherever we find it.
This deep dive has been eye-opening, to say the least. We started out talking about Nepo babies in Hollywood, but we uncovered a topic that weaves its way through almost every part of our lives. It's complex, it's messy, but it's definitely a conversation we need to be having.
I couldn't agree more. And remember, it's not about tearing people down, it's about building a fairer system where everyone has the chance to shine, regardless of their family tree.
Well said. Huge thanks to everyone for joining us on this exploration. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing. And remember, question everything.